Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ida and here are the 11 books I read in January. So the very first one was a reread actually, and that was Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I read this book I think 6 or 7 years ago for the first time and I really enjoyed it, and then I've just always loved the 2019 Greta Gerwig version of the movie. I adore that movie. I actually just got a tattoo to represent Little Women, so I'm a big fan, so I knew I had to reread it this time around, and I especially feel like it's a winter book. It's also like a winter movie in my opinion, because a lot of it takes place over Christmas and New Year's, and like there's snow and there's ice skating and all these kind of things. So I reread it, and while I was rereading it, I also came up with my tattoo idea, which I'll share at a later time, I think once it's like completely healed, but I'm in love with it. I'm in love with this book too. I don't think there's too much to say about it. A lot of people probably know about Little Women, but it just follows the 4 March sisters while their dad is in the army. So it's just their day-to-day life with their mom and their neighbor Laurie, and like these 4 girls are very different from each other, but they also love each other very much. I think the reason why this book still holds such a special place for a lot of readers is because you can kind of see yourself in all of these girls, or at least in just one of the girls, and I feel like most of us have a little bit of each of them. I am so happy that I started the year with this one, and this cover and like this version of the book is one I actually bought at Louisa May Alcott's home when I was in the US last autumn. And I just knew I had to get one of the books from her house. So this one is really special to me. And again, like it has this wintry vibe. That's why I thought it would be the perfect book to start the year with. And it was. Then I read Daughter of Nowheres by Carissa Broadbent. She's the same author who's written The Serpent and the Wings of Night, which you might know as like this romantasy with vampires. And it was the first romantasy book that I ever gave 5 stars, so I had really high hopes for this one too, and I really enjoyed it. It's really hard to talk about this one without spoiling it, because this is the first book in a series of 3, so I'm just gonna read out loud what the beginning of the description says, and it says, a former slave fighting for justice, a reclusive warrior who no longer believes it exists, and a dark magic that will entangle their fates. And that's pretty much all I can say, I think. I really enjoyed that the chapters were very short in this one, so it was a really quick read despite it being a little heavy. And I already have book number 2 ready, so I'm gonna read that in February, hopefully. And then the 3rd one is coming out later this year. These were originally self-published, so you might have seen a different cover than this one. I'm gonna put it up on the screen because I actually think that those versions are really cool too. But these are the new covers. So all the books are already out. I'm just waiting to get like a pair with all 3 of them in this version. Then I read maybe my most anticipated book of the year. I think so. I feel like I've mentioned this author and this book series in every single video I've ever made. She always has a way of sneaking in, and that is Sarah Adams, and this was her final book in the When in Rome series called In Your Dreams. This book is a romance, and it follows the last Walker sibling. So all of the books in her series When in Rome follows one sibling. So we've had books with Noah and Annie and Emily, and now we finally got Madison's book, and it's Madison and James's book. So we've known about James throughout all the books, and we kind of knew that this was gonna be the final installment, and I think it completely lived up to all the good expectations I had of it. It's really cute. Madison is a cook. She only just barely passed her cooking exam, and she feels like she just keeps on letting people down and never like finishing things, never doing what is expected of her. So she is having a really hard time. And James, who is her older brother, Noah's best friend, he has to figure out a way to save his farm, and he decides to start a restaurant on the farm that he wants Maddie to run. So it's about her starting to believe in herself again, and also like just James pining and pining and pining. I absolutely loved this book. I screamed so many times, like threw it down into my couch, again like I do with all Sarah Adams books. And the yearning in this one was just so good. I absolutely love James. I also love Madison now, and I can't wait to reread it. Probably in a couple of months, but like I finished it and then I just wanted to continue straight away, and I'm gonna miss this series so much, but I just know that I'll return to it whenever I need a little pick-me-up. This series means so much to me, and yeah, just love it to bits and pieces. Then I read a Danish book, or I actually think it's translated from Swedish, but I'll just translate it. It's Your Guide to Modern Spirituality, and The reason why I picked this one up was, first of all, because I thought the cover was so stunning. And then I just really liked the artwork in the book as well. Like everything just looks, yeah, so cool. And it's kind of just a quick history of witchcraft and the role that witches have played in history. And then it's also a book that you can look up meanings behind tarot cards, and it's like a quick rundown through astrology and all these kind of things. So I've already actually used it afterwards when I've been doing tarot readings. I've been looking them up in this book, and it's been really helpful. I feel like this would make the perfect coffee table book just because the artwork is so pretty, and I loved the way that things were described. I felt like it was very down to earth and very easy to understand. So yeah, I'm very happy and pleased that I bought this one. Then we have a series that I've been meaning to read for months and months and months. And I've been looking for them everywhere. They weren't available in Denmark, so I couldn't even order them online. I could only order them through Amazon, and it was going to be so expensive if I had to buy the entire series and pay for the shipping and the taxes and everything. I looked for them everywhere when I was in the US. Every single bookstore I entered, and I think I might have gone to 15 or 20 bookstores, none of them had them in their system, and they said they couldn't even order them to the stores. I could only order it to an address, and since I was only there on vacation, that wasn't possible. But now they are available online in Denmark. So I went straight ahead and I bought the first 4 books in the series, and that is The Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon. I have heard so many great things about this series from a lot of different booktubers. One of them was Darling Desi, and also Haley. I forgot the name of her channel, but I'll link it down below. She's such a ray of sunshine. I know that Darling Desi actually had this book on her like top 3 out of the books she read last year, and I already know these are going to be the same for me. I got the first 4, as you can see. They're really short though, especially the first 2, so they're such quick reads. But we follow Emma in 1883, and these are just her journals that we are allowed to read through. And she is just such an entertaining character. She has such a fun outlook on things, and she's so positive and smart and witty. And I think I've seen people kind of compare her to like Lorelai Gilmore, but make it like 1883. And I kind of see what people mean, but I think she's a little more empathetic actually than Lorelai. And trust me, I do love Lorelai, but there's just something really lovable about Emma. I enjoy the characters around her so much too. If you're able to listen to the audiobook, I highly recommend that. The narrator did an amazing job, especially with the voice acting. There are a lot of different characters in this, but of course it's written in Emma's handwriting, but we still get all the characters' voices through like her journal. Since I couldn't find these books in the beginning, I started out by listening to them on audio, and that meant that while I was reading the books, I had those voices in my head, and I think it made it so much more enjoyable. I would never have been able to come up with those voices myself, but they are just stuck in my head. Like I can just bring them forth whenever I feel like I need a good laugh. I would actually say this is probably one of the series where it's even more fun to listen to the audiobook first, then read the series afterwards. But again, it's just her daily life. We meet a lot of different characters. People are really frustrating, but also very fun. There's some really sweet passages in these journals to just end up loving Emma. Even though these books are really short, it actually took me a long while to read them just because I wanted to savor them, but I also kept laughing so much that I had to reread parts, and I had to like read them out loud to people around me because I just thought they were so clever and witty. I've already ordered the next 4 books. I hope I'll receive them very soon because then I'm planning on reading them in February. These are for sure my new comfort books. I know I will return to them again and again. If you've ever heard anyone rave about these books, trust them. They're amazing. Highly, highly, highly recommend. Then I read a book that I actually didn't think I was gonna read at any point. I've read another book by this author that I wasn't such a big fan of, and that's Rebecca Ross. I know this is probably an unpopular opinion, but I wasn't that keen on Divine Rivals. I think I only rated it 3 stars. So I haven't even picked up the second book, and I haven't picked up any of the others like Wild Reverence. But I did decide to pick up A River Enchanted, and it was basically because of this cover. Like, how stunning is this? I love these colors together, and I just thought this version was stunning, and I was able to buy this one for less than what the original cover looks like, and even like the paperback, and this is a hardback. So I knew now was my time to pick it up. It's a slow story, and it takes place on this island in Scotland called Cadence, where it's divided into like 2 clans, and our main character is called back to Cadence because young girls have started to disappear from the island and they have to figure out where these girls are being taken and what is happening to them. So he has to come back. He's a bard, he plays the harp, and they're hoping that he can get in contact with the spirits and figure out what has happened to these girls. And to do so, he gets help from his old nemesis when he was a kid. And of course, it's about like whatever happens between the two of them, and also this mystery of what is happening to the island. And we also follow some other characters that I actually think I enjoyed even more. I am so curious to see where their story goes in the second book. I know I'll pick it up, but I'm kind of waiting to see if there's going to be a cover that's as pretty as this one. It's a slow story, I will say that, but it's written very beautifully and it's so atmospheric. I could easily picture everything happening. Yeah, it was a very unique reading experience, I think. It has kind of made me curious about Wild Reverence too now, because I know people are loving that one, so maybe I'll pick that one up too. Then I read Pictures of You by Emma Gray, and I read that on my Kindle. I've had that one on my list for so long, and I feel like it was the right time to read it. It's probably more so a summer book actually, but it was really quick to read. The chapters are super short. Since I was reading it on my Kindle, I could see how long each chapter took, and there were chapters that were like 2 or 3 minutes long. So it's a book you can definitely read quickly, also because it keeps ending on a cliffhanger, so you just keep on reading. It's about this woman who wakes up after an accident and she has amnesia. She's lost her husband in the accident, but she doesn't remember this guy. And she's just trying to figure out who is she and what has happened and why is she no longer in contact with her best friend and her parents and all these other people. Then she gets into a car with a friend she had when she was young, but she doesn't remember him. And he kind of tries to help her figure out what has been missing these past couple of years, what has happened to her and also the people around her, while she still doesn't remember them, and she only remembers things from when she was 16 and younger than that. So there's a huge gap that she has forgotten about. So he helps her try to regain her memory. It's a really emotional read, but it's also a quick one. I actually didn't know how popular it was, but I can tell on Goodreads that a lot of people have read it. It was at times a little bit like a telenovela, in like the sense that it was very dramatic and there were just too many coincidences at times where I was like, okay, this is maybe a little far stretched, I don't know. But I do think that it's also a really important storyline because it is about abusive relationships and how you can completely lose yourself in that. That's definitely a trigger warning, like abusive relationships, mental abuse, also sexual abuse. Like there's a lot of triggers. I don't think they were in the beginning of the book, but I think it would have been a good idea to have them there because there were definitely some heavy topics. But again, a quick read. And then finally, I listened to an audiobook because that's a new thing I'm doing. I listened to A Stolen Life by Jaycee Duggard. If that name rings a bell, it's because she was kidnapped and held captive for 18 years. This is a book right before the time she was kidnapped, and also the 18 years while she was held captive in this couple's backyard. And then very shortly afterwards, when she was saved and she returned back to her family. And I do remember reading about this case, but I had never heard it from Jaycee's own perspective. I was very young when this was happening, so I wasn't that aware of it. It was a heartbreaking book, and there were some parts that were heart-wrenching, made me sick to my stomach, but I think it's amazing that she wanted to tell her story and tell it in her own words. It's very simply written, but it also makes a lot of sense because she was a kid when she was kidnapped. She didn't go to school, so her education stopped in like the 5th grade. Now she is studying again, but it just made a lot of sense once you were aware of that. And I think it added extra layers to the book and made it even more personal. I think I've realized that biography audiobooks are just up my alley, because it kind of feels like these people are telling their story to you, and it makes it so much easier for me to pay attention to it and remember details because it feels like an actual conversation with the person. I tend to forget a little more when I'm just listening to a fiction book. So I'm excited to continue on doing that. So if you have any recommendations for biographies where it works really well as an audiobook, please let me know. I would love to listen to them while I am doing puzzles and stuff like that during the colder months. So those were all the books I read in January. I think I've started out the year really strong, and I hope I can continue this moving forward. So I would love to hear what you've started out the year with, what book has made the biggest impression so far, and maybe also what you're planning on reading in February. So I'm always looking for new recommendations. But that will be all for me. I hope to see you again soon, and take care. Bye!